time has a way of measuring progress. Sometimes it takes a lot more time than anyone expects to achieve a specific goal. It took 12 years of vision and determination to get the Downeaster up and running.
Maine is one of only 3 states that Amtrak conductors never see, but there's a move afoot to change that. Amtrak wants to bring passenger train service back to Maine with a Boston to Portland line. Mindy Todd reports on what many hope will bring back the once familiar call of all aboard.
There was a time when trains were the most viable means of transportation, but by the 1950s, the passenger train north of Boston was dying. By 1965, Maine Central had sold all of its passenger rail cars. A recent study done for the state shows Mainers want to see passenger service restored. The study shows a stronger desire in southern Maine, and that's where railroad enthusiasts are setting their sights.
We all hope that to restore the service between Portland and Boston as the first step, and then going forward into the future, it would be I don't think it's impossible to think of it being expanded throughout the rest of the state because of the distances we have.
Davis, along with Maine and New Hampshire's transportation commissioners, were among a group touring the Bombardier plant in Barre, Vermont on Friday. The plant makes passenger and commuter trains.
This will be a wheelchair acceptable seat for the handicapped. Other than those that are ambulatory, we also have to deal with those.
Bringing back passenger service could be costly. The track, now used by freight trains, would have to be upgraded. Amtrak is currently conducting a cost study that the Department of Transportation expects to see next month. In the mid-1980s, the state established a rail policy to preserve and protect the current rail system.
Today we look at transportation, recognizing what the highway does in terms of serving our economy, but also recognizing there's strength to the rail system, creating balance in the system, being an environmental advantage, and so forth.
It could still be some time before the battle to bring passenger service back to Maine is won, and Connor says it's a fight that the state is taking on cautiously but optimistically.
It was about 10 years ago, actually it was probably 11 years ago now for you, that you put an ad in the newspaper asking people who are interested in bringing passenger train service back to Maine.
That's right. Then we put a notice out, a few of us, about 11 years ago. If you're interested in seeing passenger train service come to Portland, come to the bank Tuesday evening at 7 or whatever it was, and 21 people showed up. And they became the first board of directors of what we ultimately selected for a name was Train Riders Northeast.
And I'd like to just, take us back, 10 years and where things were. It was really the citizens of this state that rallied to have this service brought to where we are today. It was Wayne and his group that put a petition drive together that actually presented an initiated bill to the legislature, which the legislature approved. Right behind that was the citizen referendum that said, we want the DOT to develop alternate modes of travel called the Sensible Transportation Policy Act. And right a month after that, we had a new federal law passed that basically told all the states, let's get going here on developing alternate modes of travel.
To galvanize public support, we even had our own television commercial. We were a little optimistic about the starting time of the service.
You can help bring trains to Maine and the rest of northern New England by joining Train Riders Northeast today. We need more volunteers and sponsors to assure that passenger trains will roll between Portland and Boston by 1993 as a first step to restoring service throughout the state. Call us at 879-7245 today or write to us at P.O. Box 4869, Portland, Maine 04112.
But throughout the process, there were vocal skeptics who needed to be convinced.
We question the wisdom of an act to create the Northern New England Passenger Rail Authority. That's a bill Governor King is pushing through the legislative process as an emergency. Where's the emergency?
Once again, this station has engaged in a tirade against the return of Portland-Boston passenger rail service. Even tirades, however, should have some factual basis. In a recent editorial, this station has shown its preference for slogans to truth and fiction to fact. Federal transportation officials whose business it is to know have called this project the best to be presented to the FTA in recent memory. In addition, 90,000 Maine voters signed petitions supporting state legislation leading to the return of this service. Train Riders Northeast values honest and informed comments about the Portland to Boston passenger rail service. Maybe next time this station will check with informed sources before it takes to the airwaves on this subject.
Since neither New Hampshire nor Massachusetts currently intend to participate, this whole piece could fall on Maine. Although the federal government, largely through the efforts of Senator George Mitchell, has already committed almost $45 million to the project, unexpected problems with bridges could require an additional $20 million before the first train runs.
No one is telling Senator Mitchell's office, at least no one from Maine, that maybe he's gotten railroaded.
New Hampshire Transportation Commissioner Charles O'Leary has been anything but shy in taking on Senator Mitchell, Amtrak, and Train Riders Northeast. His opposition to restoring passenger rail service north of Boston has been widely publicized in his home state. This was his first interview with a Maine television station.
More people are traveling from Portland to Boston on the bus today than the proponents of the train say will go on the train out in the year 2010. But they say buses aren't for them. Awfully egalitarian, I think. They say that there's no dining car on the bus. Well, hell, for $86 million, I'll buy them all a lunch. I'll run in a string quartet and a little violin music. They can get romance on the bus.
There's been a fair amount of reporting in the last few days about how the train is going to be slower and more expensive than the bus. And we know the vast majority of people don't take the bus, they drive their own cars. Do you really think you're going to make a dent in that and change that?
Well, we're going to follow the national trend. Yes, we do. In 1999, rehabilitation of the Guilford track began thanks to federal dollars. The driving of a golden spike symbolized that milestone.
The ceremony officially kicks off a track upgrade and construction project that's expected to last for more than a year, with passenger service set to begin between Portland and Boston in the spring of the year 2000.
It's going to happen. It's real. And, you know, today is the beginning of that. There's no question in my mind that just as soon as this work is done, we'll have passenger rail service here in the state of Maine.
But there were frustrating delays that continued to postpone the start of the passenger service.
Maine could finally see the return of passenger train service.
The first trains will run from Portland to Boston, and there's already bold talk in some quarters of extending the service up the mid-coast onto central Maine. But it doesn't pay to be too bold in all of this, because the history of the effort to bring back trains between Portland and Boston is filled with delays and setbacks. So what is the outlook? As News Center's Rob Caldwell reports, it's still not clear just when the trains will be calling all aboard.
In the 1860s, the Transcontinental Railroad was built from Nebraska to California, across deserts, mountains, plains, and hostile Indian country. A monumental job that took just 6 years. In the 1990s, the drive began to bring back passenger trains between Portland and Boston. The tracks were already there, yet it's been more than 10 years, and still nothing. So, when will the trains start to roll along this route? The Northern New England Passenger Rail Authority, the state agency responsible for the service, says it should happen in late summer or early fall.
We do not want to disappoint the public one more time. The date that we give to the public is one that we will achieve this time.
There are several issues that have to be resolved before any trains can run. One of the stickiest of those issues is how fast will the trains be allowed to go? The state and Amtrak, which will operate the trains, want them to run at 79 miles an hour. Guilford Rail Authority, which owns and maintains the tracks, says 59 is the maximum safe speed. Both sides have handed over mounds of paperwork to support their case. An obscure federal agency, the Surface Transportation Board, will weigh the arguments and then settle the issue. It should make a decision next month. There are other matters to resolve, including making sure train platforms are handicapped accessible. But it looks as though they'll be worked out, and the trains will, at long last, be ready to go. Then the real challenge begins, drawing enough riders to keep the trains from disappearing.
Those disagreements were eventually resolved. The Downeaster began its inaugural run on December 15, 2001, a long-awaited achievement.
On its first day of commercial service in Maine, the Downeaster is booked solid. The train's first 3 trips sold out.
Well, I think it's a deal. I really do, just for the convenience.
I think it would be a fun thing to do.
So what I'm looking forward to is not having the hassle of the traffic and the lights and everything else that goes along with that. Well, I think initially it will be tough, but I think like everything else, it's going to catch on.
I think they're going to be able to pull off 320,000 riders a year.
You know, it depends on if you follow the build it and they will come adage, and I hope that'll be the case for this service.
According to some passengers, after one ride, the benefits of rail service become obvious.
You're not all wired out like you do on aircraft. You know, everybody gets nervous. And so I think this is a good thing to do.
There's always a sense of excitement in the beginning. The real test will come once the novelty wears off. But already one thing's for sure, getting there from here will never be the same again.
From the very beginning, state government planned on a rapid expansion to Brunswick.
Thank you all for coming today. This is a celebration of the commencement of the construction project for the restoration of passenger rail service from Boston to Portland, Maine, and on to Brunswick, Maine.
Your department has pretty ambitious plans to extend this service north to Brunswick, and is that something that you're pretty sure is going to happen?
Very recently, we've received really authority now from Federal Highway and from the city of Portland to thread the rail through the city and allow us to then move our way up through Yarmouth and on to Brunswick. We think as early as 2003, we're going to have the rest of the pieces of the puzzle coming together.
Working together, train riders, the Northern New England Passenger Rail Authority, and Pan Am are committed to improving the tracks to Brunswick. We're coming to Freeport. We're coming to Brunswick. It's only a matter of time. Throughout the process, we had a very powerful friend in Washington, Senator George Mitchell, Majority Leader of the Senate. His determination brought us the Amtrak contract along with the 2 train sets. So it was with sadness that we viewed his departure from Maine's Washington delegation.
So I will not be a candidate for re-election. Representing Maine in the Senate has been the greatest honor in my life. I've had the pleasure of visiting almost every town in Maine, every public high school, almost every factory. I've met thousands of our citizens. They've been courteous and friendly. I'll leave the Senate with good feelings. It's a great institution. I'll miss it.
Since the senator stepped down from the Senate, he's been anything but retired. His personal involvement led to the Belfast Peace Agreement in Northern Ireland. He is Chancellor at Queen's University in Belfast, Northern Ireland. He's been a senior fellow at Columbia University, a director for the Boston Red Sox, author of the Mitchell Report on Steroids in Baseball, founder of the Mitchell Foundation here in Portland, and, most impressive of all, a founding father of Train Riders Northeast.